Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time, we really got into the weeds with synapses.
Yeah, how those neurons talk to each other with neurotransmitters, all that chemical signaling.
Right, all that chatter. But, where does it all get processed? What actually makes sense of those signals?
Well, that brings us straight to the brain, doesn't it? The main command center.
So today, we're diving into that, taking a tour.
Exactly. A tour of the brain's major regions. We'll look at what each part does, how it's all organized, and really hit on that key idea. Structure links to function.
And our guide for this, we're leaning on some fantastic lecture notes from Mr. Hostler,
Right, these are for a nursing level A&P course.
based on Chapter 10 of The Human Body in Health and Illness by Barbara Herlihy. But these notes are specifically Mr. Hostler's way of teaching it, tailored for first-year nursing students.
So it's the core stuff,
Yeah.
what you absolutely need to grasp about how this control center works.
Think of it like getting the blueprint for your brain's main departments. Our mission today is just that. Map out the layout, understand the key jobs.
Sounds good. Where do we start on this map?
Okay, Mr. Hostler's notes lay out 4 major functional regions or divisions of the brain.
You've got the cerebrum, the diencephalon, the brainstem, and the cerebellum.
4 big ones, each handling different kinds of tasks.
That's the idea. Like different departments, but all working together. We should probably start with the biggest one.
The cerebrum, that's the one everyone pictures, right? The big wrinkly part.
Exactly. It's where most of the higher level thinking happens. Reasoning, learning, memory, consciousness.
And it's split, isn't it? Left and right?
Yep, divided right down the middle into the left and right cerebral hemispheres.
And inside each hemisphere, there are more divisions. The lobes.
Correct. 4 main lobes in each hemisphere, each with its own set of primary jobs.
Okay, let's walk through those. Up front is the frontal lobe.
Frontal lobe, yes. Think executive functions. Reasoning, planning, problem solving. Also voluntary movement control, managing emotions, and, crucially, speech production.
Speech production.
Okay.
Behind that.
Behind the frontal lobe is the parietal lobe. This one's mainly about processing sensory input. Touch, temperature, pain, pressure, making sense of what your body feels.
Got it. And then sort of on the sides by the ears.
That's the temporal lobe, key for hearing, obviously, but also involved in memory formation and understanding language. Comprehension.
Hearing and understanding language. Interesting. And the last one, at the very back.
That's the occipital lobe. Its job is almost entirely dedicated to vision, processing everything coming in from your eyes.
Wow. So it really is specialized, specific areas for specific tasks, which must mean, well, if an area gets damaged.
The problems you see should line up with that area's function. Absolutely.
Like if the occipital lobe is damaged, you'd expect vision problems.
Precisely. And Mr. Hostler's notes give a really clear clinical example for the frontal lobe. Broca's area.
Broca's area. That sounds familiar.
It's a small spot, usually in the left frontal lobe. If it's damaged, you get something called Broca's aphasia.
Aphasia. That's a language problem, right?
Yes, but specifically producing language. The person knows exactly what they want to say. They understand language perfectly fine, but they just can't form the words properly. The physical act of speaking is impaired.
So the thought is there, the understanding is there, but the output, the speech itself, is blocked.
Exactly. It's a powerful demonstration of that structure-function link tied to a very specific brain location. Understanding that is so important clinically.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, about that wrinkly appearance.
Yeah.
The gyri and sulci.
Ah, yes. The ridges are the gyri, pronounced J-Y-R-I.
J-Y-R-I. Got it.
And the grooves or valleys between them are the sulci, S-U-L-ci.
S-U-L-C-I, okay. So why? Why not just smooth?
It's all about maximizing surface area. That outer layer, the cerebral cortex, is where a huge number of neurons live. Folding it up like this.
It lets you pack way more brain power into the same skull size.
Exactly. Think about crumpling a piece of paper versus laying it flat. The crumpled ball fits in a small space, but still has the same total surface area. The brain's folding does the same thing for neurons.
More surface means more neurons.
And Mr. Hostler's notes mention comparing us to animals with smoother brains, like an opossum.
They have smooth brains.
Relatively speaking, yes. Fewer folds, or none in some cases, which means...
Fewer cortical neurons. Less processing power packed in there.
Right. That increased neuronal real estate from the folding is thought to be fundamental for our complex cognitive abilities.
So that question students might ask, does a wrinkled brain mean more thinking power?
In a way, yes. It allows for a vastly larger number of neurons in the cortex within the confines of the skull, which supports more complex thought processes.
Okay, fascinating. Let's move deeper then. Underneath the cerebrum.
We find the diencephalon. It's tucked away deep inside, sort of between the cerebrum and the brainstem.
And Mr. Hostler focuses on two main parts here.
Yes, the thalamus and the hypothalamus, very important structures.
The thalamus, often called the relay station.
That's a great description. Almost all sensory information coming into the brain, vision, hearing, touch, taste, makes a stop at the thalamus first.
Like a central sorting office.
Pretty much. It sorts that incoming sensory data and relays it to the appropriate area of the cerebral cortex for conscious processing. The only major sense that bypasses it initially is smell.
Interesting. So almost everything gets filtered through the thalamus.
Yeah.
And below that, the hypothalamus.
Right.
Hypo meaning below.
Right. And despite being small, the hypothalamus is incredibly mighty. Its main job is maintaining homeostasis, keeping your internal body environment stable and balanced.
Homeostasis, like body temperature.
Yes, body temperature regulation is a big one. But also hunger and thirst signals, your sleep-wake cycles influencing emotional responses.
Oh, quite a list.
And it doesn't stop there. It controls the autonomic nervous system, the involuntary stuff like heart rate, digestion, and it's the master controller of the endocrine system, the hormones, largely through its connection to the pituitary gland.
So Mr. Hostler's notes must really stress this point then. Because if the hypothalamus gets damaged,
a lot can go wrong. Exactly. The clinical side is huge. You can see problems with hormone levels, temperature control, appetite, sleep, emotions.
Yeah.
It's a small area with massive critical influence.
Okay. Moving down again, connecting the brain to the spinal cord, the brainstem.
Often called the vital life center. And for good reason.
Why is that?
Because it handles the absolute fundamental involuntary functions that keep you alive. Things you don't think about, you just do. Or rather, your brainstem does for you.
And it has three parts, according to the notes.
Yes, from top to bottom. The midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata.
Midbrain, what does that handle?
Reflexes mainly. Particularly those related to vision and hearing. Like if there's a loud bang, you automatically turn your head towards it. That's partly mediated by the midbrain.
Okay, and the pons.
The pons acts like a bridge, connecting different parts of the brain. It also plays a role in regulating breathing, working with the medulla plus sleep cycles and posture.
And the bottom part, the medulla oblongata. That one sounds important.
Extremely. The medulla contains the control centers for heart rate, the basic rhythm of respiration, and blood pressure. Absolute non-negotiables for survival.
So this is why Mr. Hostler's notes would emphasize that damage here is often catastrophic.
Yes, it's often fatal. Because if these centers are knocked out, the body can't maintain those basic life functions. You can't consciously decide to keep your heart beating or keep breathing if the medulla is severely damaged.
So recovery from significant brainstem injury, especially to the medulla, isn't really common.
Unfortunately, no. The control over essential involuntary survival functions is just too critical. Damage there often leads to irreversible coma or death. The clinical significance is immense.
Right. Wow. Okay, one more major region to cover, tucked away at the back.
Underneath the occipital lobe of the cerebrum and behind the brainstem, that's the cerebellum, sometimes called the little brain.
And its job isn't initiating movement, right? That's the cerebrum.
Correct. The cerebellum doesn't start the movement, but it's crucial for making movement smooth, coordinated, and precise. Think balance, posture, and fine-tuning motor commands.
So if I decide to reach for a glass of water, the cerebrum says go, but the cerebellum makes sure my hand goes there smoothly without knocking it over.
Exactly. It's constantly getting sensory feedback about your body's position and the progress of the movement, and it makes real-time adjustments to keep things on track. Coordination is key.
So that student-style question, if someone's cerebellum is damaged, could they still move?
Yes, they could likely still initiate movement because the cerebrum is okay, but the quality of the movement would suffer greatly.
How would that look?
Mr. Hostler's notes mention ataxia. That's uncoordinated, jerky movements. You'd see an unsteady gait, maybe like they're drunk, poor balance, trouble with fine motor skills like writing or buttoning a shirt. Even speech can become slurred because talking requires fine muscle coordination.
So you'd see the lack of coordination very clearly. It really all comes back to that core idea, doesn't it? Structure follows function.
Absolutely. And the brain's overall layout, as presented in these notes, is the perfect example. You've got the cerebrum up top for the complex thinking, the diencephalon deep inside as a central hub, the brainstem at the base handling the vital basics, and the cerebellum tucked behind, coordinating it all.
It's not random. It's an incredibly efficient, organized design.
Exactly. The layered structure facilitates communication and ensures different levels of processing happen where they need to.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the main takeaways from Mr. Hostler's notes today. We hit the 4 big regions.
Right. Cerebrum, higher functions, lobes with specific jobs, and that wrinkled surface giving more neuron space.
Diencephalon.
Hmm.
Deep inside, with the thalamus as the sensory relay and the hypothalamus as the master of homeostasis.
Then the brainstem, midbrain, pons, and especially the medulla, handling vital life functions supercritical clinically.
And finally, the cerebellum, coordinating movement, balance, making things smooth.
All showcasing how the physical structure enables the specific jobs each part does. Structure dictates function.
Perfect. Now, let's wrap with that challenge question from Mr. Hostler's notes. A little clinical scenario. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. A patient comes in. They show poor coordination. They have an unsteady gait, kind of wobbly when they walk, and definite difficulty with balance. But crucially, they have full muscle strength, and they're fully conscious and aware. Based on our tour today, which brain region is the prime suspect?
Okay, poor coordination, unsteady walk, balance problems. But strength is fine, consciousness is fine.
Sounds like the movement initiation is okay, but the refinement is off.
That points directly to the cerebellum, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, Mr. Hostler's notes would guide you there. That clinical picture impaired coordination and balance without loss of strength or consciousness is classic cerebellar damage. It affects the quality of movement, not the power or the awareness.
That's a great way to see how knowing this anatomy helps diagnose real-world problems.
It's absolutely foundational for anyone in healthcare.
You know, thinking about all these specialized vital parts packed together, it really makes you wonder how the body protects something so important. It seems so vulnerable.
That's a perfect lead-in to where Mr. Hostler takes things next. Protection is key.
So what are the defenses?
Dive into that next time. The central nervous system's protective layers, the skull itself, those tough membranes called meninges, the cushioning cerebrospinal fluid, and the very selective blood-brain barrier.
Ah, the shields for the command center. Okay, looking forward to that. So, building on today's map of the brain, next time we explore how it's kept safe. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you then.